Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Melissa. I am a registered nurse, and in today's video, I'm going to be walking you through a day in my life working as a new grad resident nurse in the ICU. So before I get any farther into today's video, I did want to take a quick minute to thank the sponsor of today's video. Today's video is made in partnership with Luisa, which is by far, hands down, my favorite jewelry company because their pieces are not only beautiful, but they are also very affordable. And Luisa recently sent me 2 new pieces, including this necklace that I'm wearing today. It is a gorgeous gold locket. I've always wanted a locket since I was a little girl and I'd watch Disney movies, and all Disney movies pretty much have like a locket and a backstory. So I'll be honest, I've been busy with work, so I haven't had a chance to put a picture in it yet, but I do plan to put probably like me and my husband or me and my dog. And in addition to this necklace, they gave me another gold necklace because I love gold. And it's kind of like this beautiful moon, crescent moon. I think it's perfect for fall, perfect for Halloween, and it's just completely unique. In addition to being unique and affordable, the main reason why I love Luisa is because they are completely carbon neutral, from their packaging to their jewelry. So it's very environmentally friendly, which is extremely important to me. If you are interested in shopping on Luisa's website, I do have a code in my description box. So you can look in my description box for a 25% off code along with the link to their website so that you can get some of their pieces. Okay, so now to get into a typical workday for me, just a very quick background for those of you guys that have not seen my previous videos. I'm 30 years old. I went back to school for nursing, so I was in healthcare administration. I decided to go and start nursing as a second career. I finished nursing school. I just became a registered nurse like 4 months ago, I think. And I just started working a new job at a hospital close to me 3 months ago. So I entered into a nurse residency program. I am an ICU nurse. I work on average 3 days a week. I work day shift, and I'm about to now get into a typical day now that I've kind of gotten into a rhythm of things. I do have a preceptor, by the way, so I'm going to work that into my day as well. So if you guys see me looking down, by the way, it's because this is my phone. It's because I wrote notes on my phone so I don't forget anything. So very first thing, I usually wake up every morning about 5 o'clock in the morning. On a good day, I will get out of bed and do the typical things that one does when they wake up in the morning. So like brush my teeth, wash my face, get dressed. I usually don't pack lunch in the morning. I usually pack it the night before, but I will like gather my lunch and pack a book bag. I take a book bag to work just like I'm in school. So I will head out of the house as soon as I can, and I try to get to work. Again, on a good day when I'm being good, I try to get to work about 5:45, no later than 6 a.m. So I work day shift. I work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, I'm expected to clock in by 6:45 a.m. So I like to get to work about an hour early. I have time to settle in. I'll put my stuff away. I'll put my lunch in the refrigerator. I will see my assignments, like what patients I'm assigned for the day. I will gather supplies. So the supplies that I usually like to gather first thing are syringes, flushes. So like normal saline flushes, after you administer medication, you'd flush out an IV line. I always get alcohol wipes just to clean like caps, IV caps, or hubs, to scrub the hub. I use it whenever I am administering a medication subcutaneously, like insulin, because you need to wipe down the patient. So it's just always good to have alcohol wipes on you. I also will get empty syringes and blunt needles to draw up medication. Just pretty much anything that I would kind of need on the go. I like to collect a couple of them first thing in the morning so I have it in my person. So after I gather my supplies, put my stuff away, I will look at the assignment for the day because the night shift charge nurse makes the day shift assignment. So even though I'm getting to work an hour early, I already have the ability to know what patients I'm gonna have for the day. So I'll look at my 2 patients, and then I will find a computer somewhere on the unit, somewhere quiet and private, and I'll take my coffee and I will just review my patients' charts to see what's going on with them. So typically when I'm reviewing my patients' charts in the morning, I'm just trying to get a background of what's going on with them before I actually have to get report and see the patient. So usually what I will look for, I will always look at the MAR, which is the medication administration record. I want to see exactly what medications my patients have to take for the day. I want to see what time that they need to be administered so I can kind of start mapping out my time and my tasks for the day and start like mentally preparing and planning. I also like to research the medications if I don't know what they are, because nothing is more embarrassing than going into a patient's room and the patient or the family member is like, what is this medication? Why am I getting this medication? And you're like, I don't know. So to avoid that awkwardness and looking incompetent, I'll always like research my medications if I don't know them. I will look up how to pronounce them and what their indication is so that I can sound intelligent to my families. I will also look at orders. So any physician's orders, is my patient going to need to go down for an MRI, or are they going to have like physical therapy coming up? I need to just kind of know what's going on throughout the day so that I can fulfill those orders. I will look at physician's notes. So contrary to nursing school, at least at my hospital, nurses don't often write notes. It really depends on the nurse. There's not a requirement, so a lot of nurses don't do it, but the physicians will always write notes, and I found the physician's notes to be very helpful. Usually they'll kind of give you a background on why the patient came in, what they're being treated for, what the plan for the patient is while they're on the unit, and what their plan is for discharge, if that's the route that they're going. And so it just kind of helps me get an overall picture of what's going on with my patient. And to me, that's very helpful. So I'll also look at that when I'm looking through my patient's charts in Cerner. My hospital uses Cerner. And to be completely honest, I will also kind of scroll Instagram and just kind of relax a little bit. Especially if my patients don't have too much going on with them, I'll kind of just use that time to decompress. Mostly because I'm not clocked in yet. I cannot clock in before 6:45. So all of this is just me choosing to come in early and kind of start like working early. So I figure it's okay for me to be like sipping my coffee and you know, kind of chilling a little bit. Then once it hits 6:45, I will go out. I will officially clock in. So now I'm on the clock. And then my unit always has like a huddle. So they'll give us like morning updates, any new policies that we have to follow, any policies that are discontinued. They'll give us reminders if we have to get like certifications or go to classes. It's pretty much just like a 5-minute huddle with updates on what's happening in the hospital and what's happening on the unit. So after this morning huddle at 6:45, then I meet up with my preceptor. We will talk about the day a little bit, kind of like what the plan is. Right now, the goal for me is to start being more independent and taking on 2 patients versus when I first started, I would just kind of watch my preceptors do everything with both of their patients. And then eventually it was I take one patient, my preceptor takes another patient, and if I need help, she's there for me to grab. Now the goal is for me to kind of start trying to definitely take care of one patient on my own, but start trying to see if I can take care of 2 at the same time, 2 relatively stable patients on the ICU. So we will go to the evening nurse of our patients. We will receive report, any updates that happened the night before, any lab updates, stuff like that. And once we know what's going on with the patients and we do bedside report and we see both of the patients, then we'll talk, me and my preceptor, and she'll kind of assign me a patient. She'll be like, okay, I think it's good for you to go with this patient because this is new for you. They're on this medication and you have to titrate medications, blah, blah. And so pretty much we'll just kind of discuss which patient I should take, and then that is the patient that I'm responsible for the day. So now it's 7 a.m. and so the first thing that I do now that the night shift nurse is gone, I've received my assignment for the day, which of the 2 patients that I'm going to be working with. First thing that I do is I will go into my patient's room, reintroduce myself because I introduced myself when I was giving bedside shift report. The next thing that I like to do is I like to update the whiteboard in the room. If you are a nursing student or if you're in healthcare and you've been to a hospital room, you know that every room has that whiteboard that tells the date and the goals for the day and the name of the nurse and who the doctor is. For some reason, like some staff I think don't really care to update the board that much. Like it's not really a thing for them. I don't know what it is with me. If I don't update the board, I go crazy. Like I have to update the board. So it's the first thing that I do. I will take time to update the board. I'll go into my patient's room, reintroduce myself, update the board. I like to clean my workstation. So not just the computer outside of the room, like I'll wipe that down and sanitize that, but inside of the patient's room, since I'm in the ICU, every room, I think in a hospital kind of has like those bedside trays. And I think on other units, of course, patients will use that to eat and they'll put their personal belongings there. On the ICU, a fair amount of my patients are either not conscious or they're just not really in a state to be using that table. So a lot of the time, if the patient is not using that table for anything and their belongings aren't on it, we'll kind of adopt it as like a medication station. So to draw up medication, we'll do it there. Keep extra supplies, we'll do it there. So if that station is messy, I like to completely wipe it down, clean it, make sure that all the supplies on that station are fresh. So I take time to do that. I take time to look at my patient's lines, make sure that all of their IVs are patent, make sure that if they have the Alaris pump, the medications are not running low. I like to make sure that my lines are labeled. So I like to label what medication is running through each line. I like to make sure that all of my lines are dated and make sure that they don't need to be changed today, because lines can only stay in for either like 24 hours or 3 days, depending on what they are, just for infection control. So I like to stay on top of that and be really organized. And I'll also do a head to toe assessment on my patient. And this is my initial head to toe assessment. So this is really important. I really take time to just look through and make sure that everything that the night nurse told me is accurate. So if the night nurse told me that they had like a blister on one side of the shoulder, I like to look at that to see what it looks like first thing in the morning so that I can know if there are any changes throughout the day. If I'm told that their skin is fully intact, I just like to go back and make sure that that's accurate, because there could have been a change between the last time that the nurse assessed the patient and when I'm picking up the patient. So I need to know if they've developed any bruises or any cuts or anything like that. I will do like my neuro assessment. So I'll look at their eyes, I'll take my stethoscope, I'll listen to their lungs, their heart. To me, the first assessment is extremely important because it gives you a baseline of what is going on with the patient, so that if anything changes throughout the day, I can know, hey, I'm hearing crackles in the lungs right now at 12 p.m. I didn't hear that this morning. So now it's 8 a.m. My assessment is done. I've either completed my assessment on one patient or on two, because I'm starting to branch out and try to take care of two patients. But I've done my assessment for either one patient and for my two assessments. They were both very thorough assessments. Now it's 8 o'clock and it's time for me to document those assessments. So I'll go into the system, I will document everything. So once I'm done with my initial charting for either the one patient or for both patients, then I will start doing my med pass. If there are morning meds that are due, I will try to get those out of the way, especially if I have one patient where I know it's gonna take me a long time to do their medications. I try to do those first. And while I'm in the patient's room, I just kind of clean them up a little bit. If they kind of have gunk in their eyes, if they're not conscious, I'll take a washcloth, I'll wash their face a little bit, I'll do oral care. If they have an ET tube, so a tube going down their throat, I'll make sure to suction that for any secretions. If they had any urine, like if they have a Foley, I'll look at that. Pretty much, so at first I guess I assess the patient head to toe, and then when I go back in after charting, I will just kind of take care of other things. So it's still patient care, but I think the first time I go in, like my focus is an assessment, getting a baseline on the patient. The second time that I go in, it's to like administer meds and to actually do care. I'll also take this time to reposition my patients and to clean them. So I like to reposition my patients every 2 hours if they can't like turn on their own, especially if they're not conscious or if they're sedated. I like to reposition them from side to side. One, because I'm supposed to, but two, it's again one of those things that drives me a little bit crazy if I don't, just because they can get bruises and all sorts of things can happen if they're just in the bed not moving. So I reposition my patient. While I'm repositioning them, I will look to see if they have gone to the bathroom or if the bed is wet. If it is, I'll try to use that opportunity to clean them up, make sure that they're presentable, because at my hospital, visiting hours start at 8 a.m. So I feel like there's nothing worse than a family member coming in and they see that their loved one is, you know, sitting in bodily secretions. Even if it's only been for like 10 minutes, I feel like the family member's image is going to be like, oh my God, they were like this all night. So I try to get that taken care of pretty early and just make sure that everything looks good. Same thing with making sure that their face is cleaned, or that like if they're again sedated, I try to make sure that I put lotion on their feet just so that they can look presentable to family, so that it doesn't look like we're not caring for their loved one. So at 10 a.m. we have rounds on my unit. So I think every unit in my hospital is different. Not everyone does like traditional rounding, I call it, where it's like an interdisciplinary team where they go door to door talking about each patient. But on my unit, we do that. So at least on weekdays, weekends, the team is a little bit smaller, but on weekdays, we have an interdisciplinary team that will literally go around the unit, room to room, discussing each patient in front of the patient's room. So it includes the nurse, of course, the intensivist, who's the doctor, the physician on the ICU. We have a dedicated pharmacist on my unit. So that pharmacist is also a part of rounds. We have respiratory therapy a part of rounds because a lot of patients on the ICU are intubated. So it just includes a variety of different specialties, and they'll go and talk about the patient. And so rounds make me really anxious. I'm still getting used to them because it's typically like the nurse giving all of the updates overnight and talking about the patient, and then everybody has a chance to ask questions and collaborate on the patient's care. So it's extremely beneficial for everybody involved, especially the patient, but it can be very nerve-wracking. So I usually spend a little bit of time in the morning agonizing over that, practicing what I'm going to say, and rounds start at 10:30. So by the grace of God, by the time that they come to my room, I'm prepared and know what to say, and I'm able to answer questions about the patient and not look like an idiot. And at 10 a.m., I will also reassess my patient. So on the ICU, at least at my hospital, on average, you're supposed to assess your patient every 2 hours. I know on other units like MedSurg, I think the standard is every 4 hours. On my unit, it's every 2 hours for a very stable patient who's likely going to eventually go to a step-down unit. For any other patient, especially a patient that's on Q1 hour, which is every 1 hour neuro checks, you assess them every hour and you have to document every hour. So really the standard is every hour. It can be every 2 hours. And then in special cases where a patient is on like a vasodilator, or certain drips that need to be titrated, so medications that need to continuously be played with, you have to like be checking their blood pressure, and you have to be checking for any critical changes every 15 minutes. So assessments on the ICU can be anywhere from every 15 minutes to every hour to every 2 hours. So I feel like I'm constantly reassessing my patients. But either way, whether my assessments are every 15 minutes, every hour, every 2 hours, at 10 a.m. I am doing another assessment on my patient. So at 12 o'clock, I will of course again assess my patient, and then I will administer early afternoon medications. I will look in the patient's chart to see what new orders have been written. Typically when we do interdisciplinary rounding, that is when, you know, I'll tell the doctor, okay, so the patient is not tolerating food well, or the patient's blood pressure keeps going up and down. The doctor will then tell me, okay, we're going to switch the patient's diet, or I'm going to eliminate a certain medication and replace it with another medication. So after rounding, the physician will go in, write new orders, and so it's my job to look at those orders once they are entered into the system and then to follow through with them. So I'll go ahead and make sure that I'm constantly checking that, but that's something else that I do around 10 a.m. and again at noon. And I kind of keep doing that until it's time for lunch. I usually take lunch around 1, depending on the day. If the day is really crazy, then I'll take it around 2. The ICU is pretty good about like everybody working together, so I am able to take a lunch, especially since I have a preceptor. I have not had a day yet where I have not taken a lunch. Once I'm no longer precepting, I don't know how that's going to work out. But my lunch is 30 minutes. I usually eat lunch in the break room or in the cafeteria. I'll just kind of zone out. I take my 30 minutes, and then I go back up onto the unit. So since I have a preceptor, my preceptor is like a built-in partner that I have. But once I'm no longer precepting, I will be assigned a buddy. So every nurse is assigned a buddy. So if you have to go to the bathroom, if you have to take your lunch break, you will check in with your buddy, let them know that you're leaving the unit, and ask them to casually watch your patients while you're gone. And so that involves giving kind of like a mini report, because you have to tell your buddy what's going on with your patient, what medications they're on. So the buddy is just kind of checking in, making sure that stays stable while you're gone. And so when you come back, you then also would get like a little update report from your buddy to know what happened while you were gone. So since I'm still on orientation, I have a preceptor. Whenever I come back from lunch, I'll get like an update from my preceptor on what happened with my patients while I was gone. So in the afternoon, things can tend to get crazy. Really every day on the ICU is a bit different because it depends on what patient you have and what they have going on. Throughout the day, if your patient is intubated, I have respiratory therapy going in and out of the room to look at their machines and to make sure that the patient is doing okay. I know nothing about their machines. And then depending on the patient, physical therapy will pop in and work with them, or speech therapy will pop in and work with them. The intensivist is going in, kind of checking the vitals and adjusting their plan of care. So a lot of people are kind of coming in and out of the room in addition to family. So it can get really hectic and really crazy. So each day honestly just depends. If I have an order for an MRI, then I will prep my patient for the MRI and I will go down to get an MRI with my patient. Anywhere else in the hospital, I believe, like the MRI team would come up, get the patient and take them down, and then the nurse would stay with their other patients on the unit. Because patients are considered unstable in the ICU, it's intensive care, I believe that my unit's the only unit where we follow our patients. So most things are actually done by the bedside. So like dialysis, for ICU patients, they don't go down to dialysis. Dialysis comes up to them. Everything's just kind of done at the bedside. Like if the patient needs to have an echo done, they'll come up and do it at the bedside. Everything's done at the bedside except a few things. One is the MRI, because the MRI machine is massive and you can't carry that. So the patient has to go down. And there are, I think, 2 other things that I'm blanking on. But for the few times where the patient actually has to go down, the nurse, the primary nurse, which would be me, has to go with them. We have to connect them to a life pack and take a Zoll so that if they code on the way to their procedure, coding going into cardiac arrest, I, as the nurse, am there to start resuscitating them as soon as possible and to take care of it. So it's a lot of pressure, but it's kind of like taking a little field trip with my patient. So if my patient has like a MRI to be done in the afternoon, I would disconnect them from the monitor that's measuring their blood pressure. I would disconnect them from the monitor that's measuring their cardiac rhythm, their oxygen saturation, and I would go down with them. If they have a ET tube or a tube going down their throat, I would have to contact respiratory therapy and coordinate with them. So the respiratory therapist would also go down with us and continuously monitor their machine and the patient. So that typically would take everything from prepping the patient to go down to another unit, staying with them while they have their procedure done, and coming back up, and then getting them rehooked to everything and reconnected to everything in the room could take probably an hour on average. So that would take a big chunk of the day. And then of course, if I have to do that, my preceptor would watch the other patient. A lot of the time my preceptor comes with me and then we get a nurse to watch after our other patient. But that's just another thing that can kind of take up the afternoon. And then of course, when I get back, I have to catch up on charting. So it's really easy to get behind on charting, and I've been trying to be good about staying on top of it. Okay, so now it is the afternoon. I had a whole full day. I feel like every day is different. So I feel like this video is getting derailed about like, if this happens, then this happens. But every day truly is different in the ICU. I'm finding, just depending on what patient that you have, and it can be very intense and very hectic. So once I hit the afternoon around 4 o'clock, I do another thorough head-to-toe assessment at 4 o'clock on my patient. I will go in and chart that. I will give my like afternoon medications And I just continue to monitor my patient and take care of them, reposition them every opportunity that I have. I'll talk to families, answer their concerns, or address any questions that they have, and just kind of go from there. If a patient is able to verbalize and talk, if they're able to eat, then dietary services will come in, they'll take their orders. So their dinner will come up and their lunch will come up. And if they need assistance with that, I will help them eat. I also have to document how much they're eating, which is extremely important. If they are on like restricted liquids, or if I'm closely monitoring their liquids, I also have to be mindful of that. And I have to go into the chart and I will document that. So then of course, at the end of the day, I do my final assessment on the patient. I try to make sure that I'm on top of my charting. Night shift comes in around 6:45. I come in 6:45 in the morning. They come in 6:45 at night. And so they will have their evening huddle while I'm kind of like scrambling to get everything taken care of for them and to get the patient prepped up for night shift. And then the nurse that has assigned my patient, or my patients, will come to me, and they will expect a full report on the patient so that they can know what to expect. And so usually I give a report one of two ways. One is if this nurse is brand new to the patient, like the nurse has never had the patient before, then I will give a full report. I'll talk about when the patient came into the hospital, why they came into the hospital, literally everything from the incident that led them to the hospital up until this very moment. If the nurse had the patient before, especially the night before, and I'm just kind of giving the patient back to the nurse, that's actually my favorite. So all I will do, since they already know the patient inside and out, all I will do is that I will give updates on what happened throughout the day. So if the patient's diet changed, if the labs were kind of funky, or like their hemoglobin dropped, or if I gave a blood transfusion, if they had a speech evaluation and now they're no longer able to eat, they changed medications, just literally any updates that happen throughout the day, I will go ahead and let the evening nurse know, since they already have the backstory on the patient. So after I transfer my patient back to the night shift nurse, I will then go back, make sure that I have completed absolutely all of my documentation. I'm still trying to work on that. I just feel like Cerner is what my hospital uses, and Cerner is it's very easy to forget things in Cerner and to make mistakes in Cerner. So I try to go back with my preceptor and make sure that everything is documented. I'll have like a little debriefing session with my preceptor to see how I did that day. I like to get feedback. And then I will pack up and go home. And so I usually get home around 8 p.m. on an average day. On a good day, depending on what's going on, I can get home around like 8:30. I usually don't get home later than that. And I will shower. It's the very first thing I do. I strip all my clothes, I throw them in the wash, I shower, and then after my shower, I'll throw them in the dryer and I will crawl into bed and get ready for the next day. So that is it for a typical day on the ICU as a new grad resident nurse. I apologize that it was all over the place. As I was filming this video, I realized that literally every single day is different, but I genuinely love that. I feel like the ICU is such a great learning environment. There's so many different types of patients. We get a lot of neuro patients in my ICU, and during my clinical rotations in nursing school, I did do clinical rotations on quite a bit of ICUs, but they were all cardiac focused. And so this is my first time really being exposed to neuro patients. So it's very complex, but I'm learning a lot and I love it. And it feels like every single day is different. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please comment down below. And again, I want to remind you to shop Anna Luisa with my 25% off discount code. It is in the description box below if you're interested. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.